Good evening, everybody. It's amazing the lengths that I will go in order to keep my one viewer very, very happy. Kevin, you asked for this, or rather, you kind of suggested it, and I stuck my head up above the parapet and got shot off. Or maybe it was Michael, I can't remember, but I'm doing a tournament report today, and I've never done one before, and I kind of have to go back a little in history. And when I played in tournaments, I used to have a little web page, and I used that for the tournaments I did locally. But I also did that to record the tournaments that I played in. And this is a record or the content of my website or whatever the website was saying at that point in time. So it's 25 years old, which is pretty scary. And it's from the Cardiff tournament in 1999. So yes, it is 25 years, just under 25 years old. But I've dug it out and found it, and it found some of it. Some of the images are missing and whatever else. It's not particularly well written as a piece of literature. I reserve the right to spell things incorrectly and use grammar incorrectly and make a total pig's ear of things, as it is. But what used to happen is I would play in the tournaments, come home. Sometimes it's quite a long drive, etc., etc. And then I would write up what happened. And as I got used to this, or as I got, sometimes I judged it, so I didn't do that. But when you're involved in it, then it's quite easy to get a deck list from the people at the end, or whatever else. Or if you're running the tournament, you can get your own deck list, and you can use those and publish them here. So this is a tournament that happened in '99, and it was, I went to it after the British Nationals, and if you can read it on the screen, then fine, freeze it and read it. I had a pretty naff British Nationals, to be fair. I came out of a tent in Wales, had to drive 3 hours, having slept awfully the night before, with all my decks in bubble wrap and shrink wrap, and to keep the water off them and everything else. And drove to Birmingham. Played okay, had awful draws, pretty consistently awful draws. And my kind of co-player at the time, Rob Matthews, who was the British champion, had incredible draws and was drawing too many assets, and I had exactly the same deck, and I couldn't draw an asset all day for luck or money. So I didn't even write that up. Rob did that, mainly because I had to leave home to leave early to come home to the tent excitement. So this is a kind of favourite of mine in a way. We'd had the Nationals, we had Gen Con, we had Cardiff, and then we had another tournament in Reading called Colours. And I'd done particularly well at Gen Con. I was tied with Rob for first place, because the tournament started late, because Wizards of the Coast didn't tell anybody that the tournament was on. They didn't like or weren't particularly forthcoming with Battletech. I mean, I'm running a Battletech tournament, so they even sent me Magic prize support, which I ended up having to go into town and trade with the local shop for Battletech projects to give to everybody. Such was their antipathy towards it. So anyway, long story, I'll go on forever. So I did quite well at Gen Con, came joint first with Rob. We had a very similar record. I had one more loss than him. Tournament standings tend to go on wins first. Maybe he came first, maybe it was joint. I don't, whatever. This tournament followed, and one of the reasons I like it is because I won it. I won it reasonably well. I was very pleased and obviously very happy with that. And I played a variation, or one of 3 Lao decks that I played and won tournaments with that year. So I was kind of looking forward to it. I like Cardiff. I like the city. I'd been there a number of times before. My sister had spent some time there at university. The journey is straightforward. It's a little long. It's 2 hours, and then you have to find somewhere to park. And then the tournament was in an RPG, Dungeons and Dragons typey shop in one of the arcades, which I still think the arcade is still there, having visited a year or two ago, but I'm not. The shop definitely isn't. And this tournament was organised by MechForce UK, who were the UK arm of Battletech, for want of a better word. They had a big argument with Wizards because it was Battletech, so it was theirs. Wizards said, no, it's our product. The two guys, Bob, who was running MechForce UK, and Carl, who was running Wizards UK, did not get on. They literally hated each other. For obvious reasons. Each was pissing in the other person's pool, so to speak. So there's always a few problems. So this was done by MechForce UK with Wizards of the Coast prize support. They allocated box powers, or box powers were legal, and the alliances were banned for this particular tournament. Crusade wasn't long out. And given Nationals and Gen Con and whatever else, I thought there were a lot of people going to be playing something slightly different. And we weren't going to get the box power abuse of Comstar and Steel Viper. So I decided to play Lao. And I'm not sure if the box powers are actually in Lackey. And I can't remember what the box power is, so it's box rarity. So I can search Lackey for box, and it fails miserably because I need. Let's see where that is. That goes in the rarity box. So I need to search rarity for BOX, and let's see what we've got. And all of a sudden we find out what the box powers are. Ghost Bear, Marek, Smoke Jag, Ironhold, which is Green Budgie, Luthen, which is Karita, New Avalon, Come On, which is Davian, Old Kent, which is Steel Viper, Orestes, which is Rasselhag, Cyan, which is the Lao one. Scrap a card from your hand, gives your opponent -1 initiative. So it's a decent box power. It can stop your opponent playing missions. You can only give -1 because you've got attack, so that doesn't prevent him from jumping, or if he's got a pilot, using that, but it can slow that down a bit. And then we have St. Ives, gain all the assets, Stranamak 2, which is the Wolf one, Terra, Comstar one, and Tharkard, which is the Steiner one. Okay, so those are the box powers available. Lots of people didn't use them. Lots of people were fed up with them because there are ways to very, very seriously abuse 2 or 3 of them, and they were never designed that way. That's another stream, by the way. I'll do it. Yeah, I know. If you want it, I'll do it. As I said, anything to keep you, my single listener, very, very happy, etc., etc. Okay. So from that point of view, everyone wanted a bit of a change, so I wasn't expecting a great deal of Comstar or Steel Viper. Those are the 2 that are generally abused. And therefore, I was expecting a lot of things to be played. Lao had got some boosts recently in Commander's Edition, the revised Clint, the revised Vindicator, and in Crusade, the little green egg on legs, the Cataphract. And along with some of the other stuff that was in place, like Trojan Horse, Manipulation of Romano, Earthworks, Death Commander Strike, there are a lot of really good cards in there that had some element of synergy. You just had to kind of unpick the ball of wool that the cat had played with and knit everything together so it made a decent deck. The other thing is a lot of these cards are really, really good for sideboard. So there we go. Okay, so this is the deck that I went with, and I can just pop this up in the corner for those of you that want the list, but I'm going to go through it in Lackey. So we have 8 assembly, 7 tactics, 4 war funds, 2 think tanks, 2 black market connections as the resources. So that's 15, 19, 23 resources. Maybe you could shave one, maybe. You're noticing, if you look at all the units, their assembly and tactics, why the think tanks. We'll come on to that in a minute, but also the opportunity for logistics. Okay, so the Laumechs, the Vindicator, the revised one, 6 of those, 263 jump long range 1, really, really good. Very, very cheap, no asset buyout. If I'm stuck for assets, out it comes. The Clint 1A 2 tactics, okay, can get a bit expensive, but for 1 cost, a 1-3-3, 3 damage, jump, long range 1, again, really, really good, really cheap, really good value. Damage to asset ratio 1-3, very good. So the Vindicator's 2-3. The other one I'm picking out here from that selection that I mentioned is the Cataphract. A 3 cost, 1A, 1T, 2 armor, 6 structure, super durable for its cost. I think it's the only 3 cost unit that's got more than 1 armor. 3 damage, quite nice. But the options are great. You can overheat it for another 1. You can alpha strike it for another 1. You can get 5 out of it if you want. If overheat's going to kill it, you alpha it, and then they have to attack it again. Or if you need the options, you can just overheat regardless for 1 additional damage, knowing that it's got 2 armor. And if you happen to include the Spectre here, which has got ECM, then all of a sudden it's even harder to kill. 062 ECM jump, dasher stopper, heavy mech, fast mech, slower upper, so to speak. And my final 2 units were the classic Centurion, 162 Alpha 2, only playing 4 of those, and 3 Wraiths, super durable at 173. They're more of a fast screen than anything else. It takes quite a bit to kill them at 1-7 in a go, so they hang around quite a while. So this is a semi-swarmish deck, or quite swarmish deck. Most of the units are really cheap. The expensive end, I only have 3 Wraiths, 4 2-cost Centurions, 4 1-cost Clints, 4 3-cost Spectres, 6 3-cost Cataphracts, 6 2-cost Vindicators, and is it 27 mechs, something like that, all within 2 to 3 costs. So one of the ways to deal with this is resource denial or to hunt the units. So I packed Fog Shrouded Moors, just 1 in the deck, and 5 heavy fogs, very defensive missions, in order to prevent or deter any of that early aggression from things like dashes and elementals and things, and fast dashes like phantoms and stuff, and or if they go hunting, to keep my units alive, just to keep them guessing, a reactor breach or 2 in order to make them overcommit and then punish them, and then a couple of pushing the envelopes in order to trade reasonably well. If I was going to do this today, then maybe the reactor breaches would be Comguard response teams, and maybe one of the heavy fogs would turn into a final push, and maybe you could tweak the mech distribution slightly. As I said, there's only 4 Centurions. Maybe you want to go to 6 of those. Maybe you drop a Clint or something, I'm not sure. You could play around with it. Okay, so I think I was quite happy playing a reasonably low-cost swarm. I'd played it a number of times, or variations a number of times, against my playing partner at the time, a guy called Duncan Flint, who, God rest his soul, took a beating on a number of occasions from that. And yeah, cool. And then the sideboard I picked. And the sideboard I picked was 2 Death and Commando Strike, and now you can see why the think tanks are in there. Not only a bit of utility in the game if I need them, but also the fact that this requires politics. It has a politics buyout, a big one at 6 politics, and it's quite expensive at 5 cost. However, the utility you get from this card is amazing. It says scrap when revealed. Choose any command card in play or any card under construction and scrap it. So let's think about, obviously the card under construction deals with big mech decks if they can't get them out quite quick, or anything that's being built. You're paying 5 for it, so if it's got more than 5 counters on it, then your efficiency is quite good. You've destroyed something that they've invested more in by paying less for it. And secondly, the command element can be quite important or quite useful here. So you can kill a black market with this because it's a command. When you look at black market, it's a command resource. So you can kill a black market with this. You can kill Kai with this, because if we go and look at Kai or Victor, let's do Kai. Here he is. He is a command card. So there are lots of potential targets for this. Okay, it doesn't kill a mech unless it's COC, but it's very useful. Arguably, it's an Arrow 4 battery to kill Black Market. It's an unlikely love affair to get rid of Kai or restock Victor or whatever else. It's an automatic CUC killer, and you can use it to destroy anything that's giving you a certain amount of grief. You pay for it. You pay for all of that compression because it costs 5, where most of the others are 1s and 2s. But the flexibility and utility is really good. Okay. One other thing too, and you can kill single combat with it, by the way, as well. But I was packing 2 single combats just to abuse for those clan decks. 1 Rocky Gorge and 1 falsified maps. And the idea of those 2 is, if I need it, I've got Fog Shrouded Moors. If I put a Fog Shrouded Moors, sorry, I'm playing Fog Shrouded Moors. If I put a falsified maps in, then effectively, if I play the Fog Shroud, then it's on the table and I can throw my false maps to the BMC fodder. Or if I don't draw my Fog Shroud, then I can use false to pull the other. The idea with Rocky Gorge is that I could substitute both in, and effectively it give me 2 gorges, or 2 chances. No, that's not true. It doesn't give me 2 gorges. It gives me 2 chances of pulling a gorge, either the original gorge itself or the other one via false maps. But I could still leave my Fog Shroud in there. So, okay, it's a little awkward with Heavy Fog. Maybe that's a card that you bring in and out. You could Fog Shroud your stockpile and then play Heavy Fog. You could Fog Shroud your resources and play Heavy Fog. You can even Fog Shroud your patrol area to stop hunting. And then you could put Rocky Gorge somewhere else. So, for example, if they're playing a fast clan deck, you could Fog Shroud your patrol region in order to stop them hunting your units, and you could put Gorge on the stockpile to deter dashers and elementals and all that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of interplay there. You can play all 3. You can play 2 or 1 or whatever. And that just gave me the option to pull in and bring out what I wanted, depending on what my opponent's play style was and theme and how they dealt with stuff. And then finally, possibly my little ace in the hole, the wonderful Maskurovka Sabotage. And again, another great piece of artwork from fans for Hinkle. Do like this guy. Play only during a battle, roll a die, draw a card. So it kind of replaces itself. So the downside, not too bad. Could be a lot worse. 2 to 6. Choose an opposing unit. The amount of damage dealt by that unit in excess of its base attack is redirected to the unit. Okay, so let's be very clear here what we mean when we say base attack. So let's pick the Cataphract. Okay, this card has an armor of 2, a structure of 6, and an attack of 3. That is the base attack. So that does 3 damage. The Overheat and Alpha Strike options are options, and you declare whether you're going to use them or not. So if you overheated this and Alpha Struck it and played Maskurovka Sabotage on it, the 2 additional damage would go to the unit. Okay, so this is quite good when we look at something like Prince Victor. Where he is, here he goes. Okie dokie. Each unit in your group, that includes mech piloted by Prince Victor, gets +1 attack and +1 initiative. That is over the top of its base attack. If you look at Victor's stats, he gives that unit +3 attack. So all of a sudden, this is doing 4 over what it should do. Now, if you play Massacre of Sabotage on that 4 is redirected to the mech piloted by our handsome little friend here. Okay. And finally, let's look at the big old beastie. Let's pick the Night Giant D. Okie dokie. It has 6 missiles. It overheats 3 + 5. Its base attack is 3. So if you overheat this unit and it does 5 additional attack, that is on top of the base. So if Massacre of Sabotage is played on this, it deals 5 damage to itself, on top of the 3 from the overheat. So just overheating that, it does 8 to itself, which practically nearly kills it. Additionally, the 6 missiles all deal damage to the unit because they are on top of the base attack. So Massacre of Sabotage is a mech with big options and or pilot killer. So that's quite flexible again. It's good against pilot decks. It's good against units that overheat or alpha strike or use things like redline and sharpshooter. And it's also good against missile mechs. And that's why it's in the deck. So I've got 2 6 with single combat, very abusable cards for want of a better phrase, and then some interchange and utility within False Maps and Rocky Gorge. And it's just reminded me that I should do a stream on sideboarding one of these days. I wrote an article a long time ago. I should find that out and talk about that. Yeah, we'll do that one of these days. So that was my deck. That's up in this top right hand corner. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull that out, and that'll leave my deck over there. The rudimentaries of streaming, too many windows. Let's get rid of that, and now you can see what's going on. So there's my deck. Next was a deck, and I managed to get all the deck lists. So with your indulgence, I'm going to talk through them. Matthew Greet. I got a bit of a beef with this guy. He beat me down at Harlow. He was playing a C3 pilot deck and slapped me around like his bitch. I didn't get very good draws, and yeah, so bit of revenge is in order here. And he's playing something really weird. Okay, he's playing 7 assembly, 6 tactics, 6 logistics, 4 war funds, and a repair facility. Okay, then he's got 3 dashers, 6 hand queues, 3 Vulture Cs. Now the Vulture C, for reference, is the 4 1A 1T. Oops, get the right one. 174 long range 1. It's quite durable, quite reasonable for 4 cost. 2 Gladiator Primes. This boy. This boy, I think, was arguably, him choosing the Gladiator Prime arguably made me win a game, potentially. I'm not sure it's a great choice. Yeah, it's 3, 10 and 6. You know, it's durable. It's got long range 2 and it's a straight 9 and it fits the deck reasonably well. But if that had got 7 damage on it, then things would be quite strange. And let me just reorganize that so we can see things a bit better. 2 Berserk Elemental points, 3 2L. Anything it does damage to kills it. Blitzkrieg, anything opposing it gets 1 additional damage. 2 Covert, tap for a damage, and 2 Skirmisher. No, Covert's got long range. Skirmisher's the tap for 1 damage. I'm not quite sure about this. I think playing 4 Blitz, 4 Skirmisher, 2 Berserk is reasonable. I suspect he didn't have the Skirmishers, so that's why the Coverts went in. I mean, they're 1 cost. Let's just quickly have a look at this. Covert Elemental Point, here they are. They're a 1 cost, 043 jump AP, you know, value for money. They're pretty good. And then on top of that, he's got 4 Steel Viper R&D teams. Now, this is arguably a bit of a scary card. It's a straight 4 cost, and it says tap, draw a card, make an additional deployment this turn. So this is a deck speed booster. You draw a card, you get an extra deployment. And I think the idea here is to put that down, drop a load of cards or as fast as you can, build your resources up and outgun your guy. The problem is you're obviously drawing your deck and there's a finite number in there, so you can't afford to hang around if you're playing this card. It's kind of push, 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 pressure on, pressure on, pressure on. Because if you don't deal damage quick enough or get the upper hand quick enough, you're just going to draw yourself to death. To go with the mechs and the elemental points, he's running Heat of Battle, which makes a lot of sense. I did a stream about that earlier, or in the previous list, and it says attacking groups of 2 need or greater than 2 can only be blocked by groups of 2 or greater. And the idea here is if you've got 1 mech and I've got a dasher and one of these elemental points, you can't block me, because it says units and the elemental points are units, which is arguably, in this case, as good as an inside job in a lot of cases. 1 Perigard Zalman in this Steel Viper deck, because literally everything else so far is non-affiliated. None of this is Steel Viper apart from the R&D team. We've got Perigard in there, and Perigard, I like Perigard. I mean, he does look like a bit of an SS Nazi Sturmbannführer with that dodgy haircut and the red armband. But tap him, put a mission into play from your put a mission into your hand from your scrap heap. It's basically a black market connections for missions, which is great if you're playing enough missions. And he's only playing 2 forge and 2 taking the hit. And then the sideboard has got 2 overrun and 2 heavy fog in, 2 point defense to deal with missions, and heavy woods to that's prevent 2 damage to the target, which isn't as good as fog shrouded moors in effect. Okay. So, I mean, if I was doing this deck again, I think you've got to go 6 Dasher. I think you've got to, if you went 6 Hanky, then I would probably scrap the Vultures and the Gladiators and probably go with something like 5 Man of Wars or 4 Man of Wars or something other like that and tweak the elemental points. I think I'd drop Heat of Battle to 1 and maybe put another unit in. I'd take the repair facility out and tweak these slightly. I think there's a lot of emphasis on T because of the Hanku Prime, and I'd consider getting rid of it. If you go Dasher, it's A. If you go Man of War, it's A. So I think this could be a rationalised quite seriously. Okay. Next in the list of super duper decks, we have a good friend of mine, and I helped him with this deck. Just tweak the mic a little there. Mike Gwillem, who's playing Ghost Bear Elemental Dragonfly deck. 8 assembly, 8 logistics, 2 tactics. Low tactics because all of these units apart from the Dasher jump. 1 BMC, 2 think tanks, 2 war funds. He changed that resource mix. I had something slightly different. 5 Blitzkrieg and 5 Skirmisher, we've kind of mentioned those. 6 Dasher Prime, 5 Dragonfly B, 5 Dragonfly C, 4 Dragonfly Ds. I think you could change that. I think the B is arguably better than the C. Whether you run Dragonfly D or whether you go for something like a Black Lanner, maybe not one of the Black Lanners. Maybe you go for something else in there. Maybe no, not a Grendel because they're M and Ts. Maybe you go into the mediums. Letha, who works really well on there. 2 Forge to get rid of any blockers. A heavy fog to prevent damage. 2 risky combats because everything jumps, and a temporary ceasefire. It's it's a decent mix of mechs. Missions, because you don't know whether he's going to forge you, whether he's going to prevent damage, whether he's going to risky you or temporary ceasefire it. Obvious counters to this deck. Rocky Gorges for the dashes and elementals, so he's got 3 creatives in there. Missiles, not great. A point defense system, 1 accidental collision to deal with the big units, and another temporary ceasefire. I think that could be slightly better, but again, dasher, elemental, resource kill. From my point of view, playing a swarm is not something I want to entertain. The same with this, dasher, elemental, resource kill. Okie dokie. Next we have Glenn Few. Again, a cheese monster. This man eats cheese like everyone breathes, and admits that. Vegetarian, if I remember rightly, as well. We met up and played and went for Gen Con, and I helped him with his... he was going to play one of 3 decks, and I made him choose the one that he was least favouring and tweaked it. And he basically came in 3rd, I think. So he had a good tournament there. And I think this deck is a change of scenery and something different to what he would normally have played. As I said before, he's played Clan Big Mech deck and a few other things. Okay, so 6 assembly, 6 munitions, 6 tactics, 2 war funds, 1 Solaris, 3 think tanks. The Solaris is for the targeting ace, and they're not expensive, so I'm not sure about that. 3 think tanks, not sure. So this is 6 Apollo. This is a Marek deck. So this is 6 Apollo. Apollo 082 missile. Sorry, 080 missile 2. Yeah, there we go. No attack. You can't retrofit it. It's just 2 missiles. It's nice and durable for 2. It's slow. So it's not a bad unit for... Oops, excuse me. It's not a bad unit for something like a draft. The hammer. This is flavour more than anything else. Hammer is 0.52 for 1. Medium. Nothing overly special. And... what else have we got? The Blackjack from Crusade. So this is the... Where are we? The Blackjack from Crusade. There. No, it's not that one. It's the other one. No. This one. The OA. 171 missile 2 jump. Cheap missile mech. 2 cost as well, so that's 6, 8, that's 18 units that are 1 or 2 cost. Then we have 2 Perseus, an Orion, and a Kintaro. So let's look at the Orion first, and this is the Narc version, so it's a decent choice. It has missile 1. It's very costly at 6 to do 3 damage with a missile and Narc. What else did we have? The Perseus. 292, durable. ECM as well, so it's 3.9. So that's 12 to kill it. Missile 3. Okay. And finally, what was the other one? It was the Kintaro, wasn't it? And this is the Narc one again, not the 19, it's the 20. No, it is the 19, excuse me. 183, nice and durable. Bit expensive at 5 though. Overheat 2+1, Narc. So it's Narc support. What have we got to go with that? 3 targeting ace, yes, decent. 3 Narc retrofits. And if you saw my stream on missiles a few weeks back, you'll notice that I said don't go for this card. Try and get units with Narc on it. If this card actually had draw a card when you activate it, a bit like, is it Jump Jet Retrofit that's got that? Then I'd say actually there's a lot of value in considering this, but I wouldn't have put this in here. And my bane on the day, a battle attrition, 0-2T. And this basically slows everyone else down. Your opponents cannot repair the units, cannot use Alpha Strike and deplete the missiles in order to use missile options. during your repair reload phase, you've got to pay 3 resources to ignore this card's effect while it's there. It doesn't get rid of it, it just ignores it for that turn, so you've got to pay 3 the next turn. So there you go. Missile Spotter is basically a missile boost, allowing you to take 1 off. So it's basically narc in a mission. Nice Grouping is allowing you to roll the dice and deal the damage that is rolled instead of the normal 1, 2, or 3. Seems a little short that there's only 1 in there. Quick Salvage, return a unit that you've killed with 1 less structure than it needs to die. So it's basically 1 off dying, and then Temporary Ceasefire. And then I find this slightly bizarre. 2 Creative Terraforming. Great choice. Great choice for a missile mech. And the reason is, scrap when revealed, choose any terrain or enhancement on a site and scrap it. So yes, it gets rid of terrains and enhancements. Now when you look at point defense system, this is an enhancement. Simple as that. So it allows you to scrap point defense system. I mean, obviously one of the ways that you can do it is you can redirect 4 damage, but Creative Terraforming basically is 4 damage in that respect. And yeah, pretty reasonable. Okay. Because otherwise you prevent all damage or all missile damage to that site. So why there's 2? I think I might have been tempted with 3 personally. I'm not sure why the retrofit missile rack is in here and not in the main deck. I mean, okay, fine. You've got the Blackjack, which has got 1 attack on it, so you could load that up and all of a sudden it's got 4 missiles on it. I think I dropped the NARC retrofit for that. Black Market there isn't one in the deck, and again, why? Not sure. Narrow Valley is only 2 attackers. I can see why, because if you put that on your patrol region, you can only attack the missile mechs with 2 units, and one of the ways of dealing with missile mechs is to basically hunt them. Rocky Gorge is anti-dasher, and Heavy Fog is just a defensive missile mission card. So I think there's a couple of ideas here that have a bit of merit. I just don't think the deck has a lot of cohesion, he says. Okay, Dan Evans, again, another friend of mine. I know that he had quite a limited collection, especially when it came to this tournament. 9A, 8M, 7T has served him reasonably well. 1 Think Tank, 1 War Funds, 2 Black Market. I think you can rationalise those down a little and add a couple of War Funds, which would give you a bit more reliability. We've got 4 Jenna 2Cs, the little fast dashing Jenna. He's bought the Wolf Precon, which is where the Phantom A and B have come from. Fenris Prime has been in his deck. Fenris B and Fenris C. B is expensive. Let's just find these for reference. Fenris B, here it is, a 1645. And the C is good at poking the stockpile at 161 with a missile one, but it's not a good killer. Vulture C's we've seen. Oh, Pouncer C's. Quite like the Pouncer C. So here they are. A 155 jump for 4. It's pretty good. I mean, the buyouts are horrendous, but if you can get a 155 for 4, that's pretty reasonable. Not to be sniffed at. Great little mech in draft. Man of War B has come out of the Wolf Precon. It's the same stats as the Prime, 374. Mad Cat B, the cheap big Mad Cat, at 9 cost, 297. Nice little resource killer. And then there is the Nightjaya Prime, the Big Bunny, the 2910 overheat 1, jump long range 2 for 12. So there's a reasonable cost curve on here. It's a bit too heavy for me. That's a 4 cost, that's a 4 cost, that's 5. Those are 5, those are 5. Sorry, that's 5, that's 4, that's 3, that's 3. That's 2 cost. I think it's a little heavy on cost. Arrow 4 battery, definitely see that. Overrun, again, if you're blocking and you've got the board, then great. 3 pushing and 2 forged, all good. Point defense system for obvious reasons. The Remembrance. I have no idea why this card is in here. I think it was in the Wolf Precon and he just moved it to the sideboard. It is a bizarre card. It's a 1/3p, and he's only got 1 Think Tank in there and 1 War Funds. So not the greatest thing. When you activate the Remembrance, scrap all copies of it in your hand. The fact that there's one in your deck is quite prohibitive, let alone scrapping anything else. It probably should be, when you activate Remembrance, scrap all copies of it in your binder and burn them, because he's not a good card. It can't be attacked. Nice. Whenever a mech any opponent controls is scrapped, put a versus counter on the Remembrance, remove any number of versus counters from the Remembrance, and deal to an opposing mech 1 damage for each counter removed. Use this ability during a mission. So basically every unit you get an extra damage somewhere else. It's hard. It's nice because you can't get rid of it and you can't do anything about it, but realistically it's a win more card at best, and is it going to make much of a difference with 1 damage per unit killed? Probably not. Okay. Overrun, obviously. Star Diversion. This was fun. Why is this played? Playing with initiative when you attack with 5 units. Well, your deck's that heavy. Are you ever going to attack with 5 units? Probably not. Difficult terrain slows everything up. Not sure why that's in there, because you've got an awful lot of fast mechs. I mean, let's face it, that's 6, 11, 12, 13, 14, 17 fast mechs. The only thing I can think of is you're intending on blocking with one of these mediums or these slow. And I suspect at that point the game's probably over. Rocky Gorge we've talked about, and then Batchel. This is interesting. Play only when blocking and only if your opponent controls at least 1 clan card. Well, that's a good reason for it to be in the sideboard, if anywhere, and not the main deck. It's 50% chance of what they're playing. +2 initiative. That's quite nice. Your opponent cannot deal damage with more attacking mechs than the number of blocking mechs. Mechs that do not deal damage for this reason do not receive damage. So what happens here is either he attacks with 5, you block with 1, play Batchel, and he slaps the hell out of the one with the biggest mech. Now, if you chose who that was, that would be quite interesting and quite different. But if you block with a dasher, he's just going to kill it, and the mission's over with effectively. And you just prevent the damage. If he overruns, then you're going to get spanked again. But the chances are that he's probably just going to kill the mech that you block with, which is not really that good because you probably want it to survive. Okay, Neil, my good friend Neil, the guy that got me into playing this game, responsible for lots of things. Neil always played the card game like the tabletop game. Didn't like playing more than 2 or 3 of most units. So it was always fun to see what was going on here. 6A, 2 tactics, 2 logistics, 4 outreach mercenary. That's the one that gives you politics and tactics for 1 cost, 3 politics, 2 think tanks, and 1 BMC. Right, so that's 10 basic resources and 2 think tanks. Sorry, not 10 basic resources. 13 basic resources and a think tank. That's cutting it really close. 1 outreach mercenary and a BMC. So you're talking, where are we? 10, 14, 17, 19, 20 resources, which is quite low. Although, to be fair to the context of the deck, 5 Owens at 2 cost, 1 Owens revised 3 cost, 2 of the little free deployed chargers, 3 of the little blackjacks, which I think that's the 2 cost. That's the OB, isn't it? So this is the OB. No, is this the C3 version? It's the C3 version. to go alongside the Owenses, but it's no buyout, so that's quite nice. 2 Spectre, 1 Clint, and then this little package of 2 Cyrano, 1 Nightshade, and 5 Cavalry. And these are the bunnies that are basically fueling the majority of the deck, because from what I can see with this, the idea is to use, these are all VTOLs, use these to hit an unblocked stockpile and Trojan horse them in for 7 damage. Let's just have a quick look at the Trojan horse card. Play if blocked. Play only if blocked. Scrap one of your units. The unit deals no damage. Target receives 7 damage, which kind of doesn't work really with the VTOLs. So you're plinking with VTOLs and then scrapping the heavier stuff. So I'm not sure if that quite works how he wanted it to. Bottom of the story, read the card. 2 final push to get that through, and then you've got inside job, Death Commando, manipulation of Romano to get through, civilian settlement, which is a pain in the arse, Maskarovka operatives. Which one's this? Scrap a card when it's scrap this card when it's revealed, unless you reveal it during your deploy phase. Well, that's a bit of strange wording. Choose any opponent, use it and tap it. Use this ability during missions phase, but not during a mission. So it basically taps things out. So it's a forged mission order kind of thing, but on a permanent basis. And you've got Sun Tzu to recycle the whole bloody lot. And then the sideboard, strafing run, aerospace. Probably better to go with 2 aerospaces. Hidden reserve, supply lines, unlikely love affair, and 2-point defense systems to stop missions. And then finally, my playing partner, Duncan, who in this tournament rolled really crazily. Duncan, on a good day, rolls well. On a bad day, he will roll a 1 on a temporary ceasefire and a 6 when you're going for missiles. AA, AM, 8T, 24 basic resources, 2 black markets, 1 war funds, 1 think tank. Quite nice and reliable. I think, again, these days, maybe dropping a few of these and adding a couple more war funds is the way to go. 6 Owens, 2 Owens 1Ds. Now, I know we've mentioned it, but Owens 1D has a nice little redeeming feature on it. And it is that it has Narc. Okay, so not a bad choice to go with the Naginata and the 2 Avatars and the Blackjack. And the Firestarter down here. So the Firestarter is the C3 one. Here's your fast screen and projection. And then majority of damage is coming from the Blackjack, which we've seen earlier. And then the Naginata and the Avatars. So let's look at those quickly. Here's our Naginata. Missile 4, C3, so it's got 2 damage if it's in a group. And a 390. So it's pretty durable, but a pretty heavy cost at 7. And let's look at the Avatars. Now, this 282 Missile 1 Overheat 1 C3 is reasonable, but 5 is maybe a touch on the expensive side for it. Whereas the OB variation, the 280 but Missile 4, is, okay, same cost, but arguably a lot better in draft. 4 missiles at the stockpile in draft can be pretty devastating. So it's a missile deck basically, with some C3 support. Lord into Bog, final push. Superior Nav seems a bizarre mission, given that you're going to untap a unit and you're playing C3. I suppose your only option is to attack with 2 C3 units, untap one of them, and then attack with another one maybe. Temporary ceasefire, pushing the envelope, accidental conditions. Only 2 targeting aces. Again, maybe dropping a resource or 2 for a targeting ace would be good. And then sideboard, 2 Gorges, Arrow 4, 2 creative terraforming. ISF counter-espionage is quite a nice one. It sits there until your opponent does something and tries to use subterfuge. Scrap when revealed, you may activate this card only when any opponent activates a subterfuge card. So it's one of the few times that you ever activate something on your opponent's turn. That subterfuge card has no effect. So basically, it's the inside job killer, or it's a trap, or anything else like that. and then finally 2 heatsink destruction. So those are the decks, and yes, I've been going on for a while about the decks, and this is the tournament report that I wrote up. Okay, so round 1, I drew Glenn with the Marek Missile deck, and to be fair to Glenn, I would say I wouldn't want to play Glenn in this tournament setting first. Who would I play? Not Glenn, not Matt Gree, not Mike. Because Glenn, because he's a good player and a friend, and you never know what's coming out of the bag. What you got to remember here is I've been through the deck list, but at this point, I don't know what's facing me. You're sat at a table across from someone you know, and they've got a deck of cards, and you have not got a Scooby-Doo what is in it. Especially when you're playing, because you just declare your deck list and it's given to the tournament officials, and that's it. And you don't know what he's coming up with. And I'm thinking, the last time I saw this guy, he was playing Clan Big Mac deck, and if that's coming this way, it could be quite a battle, quite an awkward one. So who would I pick? I don't know. Depends on the day. If Duncan's rolling bad, I'd take Duncan most days, I think. Maybe Neil. In fact, I never got around to playing Neil. It's quite a bizarre thing that never really happened in a tournament. Maybe Dan. Actually, maybe I'd take Dan first, but again, because I know them. Okay. So he's got a Marek deck, and the only time you see this is because the box powers get popped out. And you see the box power and you think, okay, it's Marek. Right. So what is this going to be? And how many blitzkriegs has he put in his deck? Because it's Marek. And you're thinking, are we going to get Chaos March veterans? Are we going to get Wraiths on there? What's going on with this deck? Because it could be quite nasty. And you're also thinking Shyster one with a Marek deck. And you're thinking, shit, has he copied that? Because the Gorge Master deck? Because that could be a pain in the ass. Okay, so I get to go first. I've got 2 tactics, a mission, and 3 mechs. And I build a Vindicator. He drops a resource because he's going second. Single cost and a resource, and out comes a hammer. And at that point, I'm not very scared of the hammers. So I build my Vindy, and I still haven't got an assembly, but the Vindicator has no resource requirements, so out it comes. And he pops another hammer, and again, I'm still not too scared at this point. And then the Missile Blackjack pops up, the 171 Missile 2. And I'm thinking, is this a missile deck? And I'm struggling without an assembly at this point, and I'm forced to play 4 for a Centurion, which is really, really bad. A 2/6/2 for 4 is pretty poor. Okay. But I need the speed because I need to block those hammers. Okay, they only do 2, and 1 bounces off my Centurion's armor, and I do 2 back because it hasn't got any armor on it. But if I'm not, he's just gonna fly straight through. So I need to put the speed on there in order to pop that down. Otherwise, I'd have put my Cataphract out, which is slow. But I don't mind paying 4 for that because it's only 1 buy and it costs 3. And I can deal 5 damage with it, which kills a hammer. But if I don't put the speed out, he's going to run all over me. Or he can start picking on stuff. Anyway, he pops a Perseus, and a couple of Apollos appear, and I'm still waiting for that assembly. And he just keeps picking my stockpile off, probably killing a few assembly along the way. And I just can't keep up and kill things quick enough. And then he puts the battle attrition out. Now that's the one that stops you alpha striking and using your missiles and stuff like that. It only affects your opponent. And I'm short on resources, so I can't afford to play the 3. And then we get a Narc Retro and a targeting ace and the missile spotter that start doing some damage, even though I've played Fog Shrouded Moors on my stockpile to keep the damage from the hammers and the other stuff coming down. And heavy fogs to reduce it. Obviously, it only reduces 2 damage, but it's 2 damage less. It's not very efficient. It's not very good. And at one point, I used the box to stop him using the missile spotter. He declares first, if I remember rightly, and I can use the box, and he can't play the mission. But he keeps going. I even react to breach a cataphract and kill an Apollo, a Perseus, and a blackjack in one go. But he's too far ahead. And if he'd have put missile retrofits in there, he probably would have won the game, I suspect. Otherwise, it would have been over. And he wins, full stop. And I'm thinking, shit. He's playing a Marek missile deck, and I've just lost to a Marek missile deck. You know, that's not exactly humiliating, but it's not a good thing. And okay, fine. I struggled because of the lack of assembly and being able to put things out quick enough. So I take out the heavy fogs, and I put in 2 Death Commander strikes and 2 Maskarovka sabotage. And as I mentioned earlier about the sabotage, they do more damage back to the original mech. And my thinking with the Death Commando strike is that that's one of the few options I've got for dealing with the targeting ace. Which, if you remember what I said the other day about missiles, targeting ace is basically plus 80% on missiles. It's basically the equivalent of adding another missile damage, or adding another missile to the mix. So it's quite an important card in him boosting his damage. So if I can get rid of those with a Death Commander strike here and there at the right point, then I'm on a good thing. Okie dokie. So next game 2, I get a good start. I've got assembly and tactics in my opening hand, and out comes a Centurion, and I follow that up with 3 Vindicators. He gets a couple of Apollos and a Blackjack, and pops that pain in the arse Battletech down. I get a couple of fast mechs and find my Death Commander strike, and drop a black market, scrapping 2 resources to pick up a think tank, so I can play my Death Commander strike. Remember, it's 5-6p, and I also draw the sabotage. So at this point, he's got a Perseus under construction. I hit it with Death Commander strike. It's got 5 or 6 counters on it, and it dies because DCS kills a card under construction, and get rid of the pain in the ass battle attrition with 2 wraiths. And he doesn't have any fast mechs, so I'm free to get through on that. And he attacks with a Perseus, the other Perseus, which has got a targeting ace and a Narc retro on it. I block with 2 Vindis. Vindicator's got jump, and I wait for him to declare. He assigns all the missiles to my stockpile. I play the sabotage. He rolls all the dices. And basically the Perseus doesn't shoot my stockpile. All the damage is redirected to it. And basically it dies, taking 5 damage itself and another 6 from the Vindis. 2-9, if I remember rightly. 2-9 ECM 13. Maybe he got damage or 2 on it, or I can't count. 5 damage from the Vindis because I jumped, and 8 from its own missiles. And literally, I just keep the pressure on, and I win through sheer beatdown. The only thing here is I've opened him up to what I've sideboarded in. Maybe he tweaks a few things. Honestly, can't remember. As I said, it's 25 years ago. And then we go on to game 3. Here he gets a slow start this time. I get an assembly and a sabotage in my opening hand. That's the Maskarovka one, not the Death Commando. He couldn't believe that card. We talked afterwards. He said he couldn't believe how good that card was. He'd looked at it and just thought it was junk. And I go Vindi, Centurion, Cataphract, bish bash bosh, and start putting some pressure on him. He's forced to block with the missile mechs, which aren't that good in defense, and he loses a number of Apollos to various things. I think I overheated an Alpha Struck, the Cataphract, and played a push in the envelope on it just to completely offload to get the 9 to kill the Apollo, or maybe there was a Centurion or something in there. And I used the sabotage to clear his side of the table of mechs, but roll a 1 I could have done it if I didn't roll a 1, draw a card, away you go. And a Wraith turns up and he gets the Perseus again. I draw a War Fund, scrap that for black market, and put out a Cataphract, and then with the black market, you know the card I'm going to go and pick, the Masquerade Sabotage, comes back, and he knows it's in my hand. He knows I'm going to pick it. And also remember that in Battletech, you can actually look through your opponent's scrap heap at any point in time. So he knows I've played it, and he knows it's not there. So he knows it's in my hand. Okay. So I attack. He blocks with an Apollo and decides not to use the missiles. They are options. Missiles are an option. You do not have to declare them. So he blocks with a 1/8/0 Apollo and doesn't do any damage to me because he doesn't want to lose it to the Sabotage. Okay, and at this point he's down 6-2 on the mech count. I hit him again with a couple of other units, and he puts the Perseus into block. He declares, and I wait for him to declare the missiles. He declares the missiles, and I hit the Sabotage again, and the Perseus shoots itself in the foot with 3 missiles and a little help from obviously the Cataphract at that point. And at that point, I am 6-6 mechs to 0. Maybe I lost 1 or 2. At worst case, I'm 4 mechs to 0, and all I need to do is just keep the pressure on and beat him down. Okay, so that was a pretty rough opening. Didn't expect to lose the first game effectively, and from that point of view, then okay, great, survived, won. Okay, round 2, Dan, probably the person I'd have picked to go off. Why? Well, he tends to play the same kind of deck. He's playing the Wolf deck that he played at Nationals. It's got a bit heavier because he's used the Precon from Commander's Edition and put a few Phantoms in there and a few other things. Anyway, I know I can beat this. He doesn't have the tools in the deck to play against a Swarm, and he doesn't know how to play against a Swarm. So in both games, I get very good starts, and I just use lots of beatdown and pressure. I attack in groups of 2 or 3, and he's forced to trade 1 Fenris for maybe 1 Vindicator. So a Fenris B, a 5 cost for a 2 cost Vindicator, he's forced to trade that. Even if he tries to double team that, then it's a fair trade. And I've got more units in the deck than him. The Fenrises take 7 to kill, which is a little awkward. But if you look at the damage, Alpha +2, 2+2 on the Centurion, 3 on the Clint, 3 on the Vindy, 3 on the Clint, Vindy, Cataphract does 3 +1 plus another one maybe, and then I've got durable Wraiths and the Spectres in there. There's lots of 2s and 3s and 4 combinations that can get to 7 quite nicely, so I can always put him in a situation where I'm dealing at least 7 damage. I'm going to kill 1 of whatever he blocks with, and the best he can hope for is to trade that with 1 of mine. So every time he blocks, he uses a mech, and he can't kill mine, and occasionally he doubles. But then, as I said, he's trading something like a Fenris B for a Vindicator or a Centurion, and I'm through with everything else. And he can't cope with it. I take out 2 heavy fog, put in 2 single combat. The reason here is he's not really running a lot of fast pressure. There are no dashes in there, they're all Jenners, and the single combat allows me to tap the units I want, so I can tap the Fenris and engage it with, say, a Centurion, and neither dies, but then everything else I've got is free to go straight through. And I take the fog shrouded Moors out for a Rocky Gorge, just to give me a bit more damage and give him a bit more of a deterrent. Game 2, he gets a couple of mechs and then stores with a hand of resources. I get a good start, keep going, and it's good night. And I win 2-0 in 25 minutes and go and grab a coffee. Thanks, Dan. So, round 3. Round 3, Matt Greet. And this is the one I wanted in a way after a couple of turns. Remember, I should have said we're playing 5 rounds of Swiss here. 7 players, 5 rounds of Swiss. Somebody gets a bye, and you literally rotate around. The first round is always random, and then in round 2 you pick the winners, play winners, and losers play losers. So round 3 tends to be the people with the best 2 records. So I suspect he's probably won at least one, maybe both of his first games, which is always a good indicator of player and deck. And I'm 4-1 effectively. I've won 4 matches, 4 games, 2 matches, and lost 1. And this guy beat me down at Harlow, smacked me around all over the place. He goes first. He plays a logistics, and I play a tactics and a war funds, and then he plays a logistics and an elemental point. And the good thing about elemental points is that they're slow and they ride on omnis. So I can hunt those with centurions, and I've also got a couple of pushing the envelopes in my hand, and his deck has got a bit of a hole in the 2-cost slot. The ramp isn't there. There aren't many dashers. The Hankyus are nice, but if you haven't got the resources on the table, assembly and tactics for the Hanky, then you're looking at paying a good buyout. We'll just check that. Is it 3A? 3A and 3T for a Hanky Prime. The ECM's nice to go with the elementals, but without one of those resources, paying 6 for this is pretty gross. So we'll pull that back across. So where are we? Hanky were nice, but you're chasing game. You've only got 1 elemental on the table, and your opponent has 2 centurion. Obviously, the thing I do then is attack the elemental with the 2 centurion. It does 3 damage, and I kill it, and my centurion are fine. Or I can attack with 1 and L for it, and then hit the stockpile for 2. Then he pops the R&D team, and I try and kill it. Now, the thing with the R&D team, and I didn't mention it earlier, but when you look at this, it's a 2-5. So it's not the easiest thing to do because it's got quite a bit of structure. Okay, you can argue it's the same as a 4-3, but... So I try and kill it straight away because I know that's going to be the thing that's going to rocket fuel his deck and take off. But he blocks and it survives. Even though I get slightly better trades, okay? And he gets the extra advantage back with an extra deploy and a draw and card. I get a few cataphracts on the table, and he manages to drop a Gladiator Prime with the help of a couple of war funds. Remember, war funds tap for 1, scrap, go pick another resource, put that in play, tap that. So effectively, it's a ramp. It's a 2, and he's done that twice, so he's got 4. And he's now got another R&D team on the table. So he's drawing 2 and deploying 2. So he's going resource, mech, tap, 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 tap. Resources all over the place. And I've got to deal with the Gladiator, which is a 3-10-6. And that's not nice. I mean, maybe he'll draw himself to death. I don't know. So out comes the Gladiator. I've got enough to kill it with a pushing the envelope, and then I forget to use the right amount of mechs, and it survives. And I screwed up there. I remember that. I had enough to kill it, and I didn't tap everything, and I should have done. And if I hadn't, I would have probably have won a lot easier, or won the game. The only thing with it is it does 6 damage, which means it's not enough to kill an undamaged Vindicator or Centurion, which means next turn it's still around, I can block with it. So I have to go into defensive mode, and then the next turn he puts out another Gladiator. So I've got 2 3-10-6s on the board, and he adds 2 elementals to the mix as well. And I have a lot of problems here because there's lots of stuff on the table. He starts to attack, which he now can afford to do. There's a Dasher, there's a Hanku, and 2 elementals come out in 1 turn thanks to the R&D teams. I mean, putting 4 units out is just absolutely crazy. So I managed to get rid of 1 of the Gladiators. I think I overheat a Cataphract and Alpha Strike it and then react to breach it and do everything to it. And it kills the Gladiator in 1 go. but the other one keeps coming back for more, and it survives because he's running a couple of taking the hits, which means it deals damage, and that gets reassigned to something else. And probably the only reason I'm still alive at this point is I've frog shrouded more than my stock. And then he makes a mistake and attacks with a gladiator, a Hankyu, a dasher, and an elemental. And I lose a couple of vindicators for the Hankyu and the dashu, and he scraps the berserk elemental point to kill my spectre. And he's left with 2 Hankyu and 3 elementals, and I have 3 cataphracts, 2 centurions, and a wraith on the board. And I have 9 cards, and he has 11. So at this point, I play, well, Black Market's in there, and I go and get a Pushing the Envelope. And I get Pushing the Envelope to make sure he's got 2 Hankyu, 2 elementals, so he can block. He can block 3. Because he can block with a Hankyu, he can block with a Hankyu, and he can double the elementals. So I've got 3 cataphracts, so he can block one of the cataphracts because they're all slow with 2 elementals. And then he can put the other elemental on something else. My Wraith's going to go through. No, it's not, because he's got 2 Hankyu. So he can block 1 cataphract, 2 cataphracts, 3 cataphracts, and I've got 2 centurions and a wraith, which, if I alpha the centurions, get me to 4 on each, which is 8, and the wraith, which is 11 in total, and he has 11. So I black market for pushing the envelope, because I want to make sure. And one of the things that you need to be aware of at this point in this kind of situation is attacking in groups, because if he plays heavy fog, then that hits all the group. And I know he's played them before. He had them in the deck in Harlow, I remember that. Okay, and the only other card I've got in my hand is a Reactor Breach. So I carefully attack with each cataphract in turn to see what he blocks with. I'm tempted to breach them at one point, but remember that he has 3 cards in his hand, any of which could be a fog or something or other like that, and I could lose. So I use the box, the allow box power, sacrifice the Reactor Breach to the box so that he doesn't have initiative in, or he has to jump, which reduces his damage in order to do that. And all I have to do to be on the safe side is do 11 with the 2 centurions and the wraith, and I alpha both, and he concedes at that point. The wraith doesn't even need to attack. That was a hell of a battle with those gladiators on the table, and if they'd have done 7 damage and killed a Vindy or a Centurion outright, I'd have lost. Simple as that in those circumstances. So I sideboard 2 heavy fog, pull out the single combats, drop the fog shrouded moors for the gorge, all of which are going to hurt those elementals and his dashers. And although there's Perigard in there and I think about Death Commander Strike, I decide not to. And the reason is he doesn't actually have that many missions, and I didn't see Perigard first time around. So I get to go first, and he mulligans, and I'm happy with 2 mechs, a Pushing the Envelope, a Tactics, and a War Funds. He doesn't get any resources and puts down a card. I think I go first and go Tactics. Then he puts down 2 cards. I go Vindy, War Funds, tap, scrap, alpha, or whatever, and the Vindy's out on the pile. And then he drops 2 more. So I've got 4 cards under construction with nothing on them. Do I kill one? Do I go for the stockpile? Is one a diversion for the other, or vice versa? I just go full for it. I go 3 to the pile. He gets a logistics and an elemental, and I've got my Centurion again, and I go and kill the damn thing, and I kill the another elemental under construction with the Vindicator. So I've now got 2 units on the table. He's got he's got Al on the table and 3 cards under construction. So I'm in a great position. I put out another Centurion and attack the Blitzkrieg elemental with the one I've got. I alpha strike it because he's got nothing to block. Kill the elemental, and my Centurion's out of action. but I can pick another thing off with the Vindy, which is fine. He finally gets a hand queue out, scrapping both war funds. He's got 2 war funds on the table for assembly and tactics, and I get another Vindicator. And I attack with the Vindicator, and he blocks with a hand queue. I play Pushing the Envelope to kill the hand queue, and forget that the Vindicator has long range 1, which I could have pushed through to the target and killed the CUC because there's no counters on it. But hey. And then at that point, I'm at 3 mechs to his 0, and if I play all 3 units against whatever he puts out, it dies. I can pick them off, and literally I just swarm and beat him down. And I think at one point I'm at 7-2, and I've got a couple of counter fracks, and he scraps both the gladiators or restocks both the gladiators because he's never going to get them on the table. And then he concedes with about 15 cards left. Just pure beatdown. Hey, that's good. 6-1. 3 games won. Right. Round 4. Mike. This is the scary one. This is the one deck that I was aware of because I had kind of helped him with it, that this could give me a lot of problems. Simple as that. Dasher Elemental resource kill, Dasher Elemental resource kill in the first 3 or 4 turns is not a way to deal with with things. Okay, yeah, I've got fogs and other things, but it's not easy. Okay, he's tweaked it a bit, but it's still the same deck. Potentially of all the decks there, it's the one that's most likely to beat me. He doesn't get a good start. He gets lots of logistics and dashers and dragonflies. And literally I force him to block with single mechs or mechs and elementals in order to kill one of mine. So I'm trading well. Whilst I get both of his or trade 1 for 1 and I've got more units. And literally I just keep pushing with the slower stuff. He hasn't got enough on the table to deal with it. I'm not worried about Spectres and Wraiths because the dashers aren't there and the dragonflies are struggling. And I even take out a dragonfly with a Clint with a Pushing the Envelope, and I win the first game through sheer beatdown, and the second game goes exactly the same. So, yay, 8-0-1, 4 wins, 8 game wins for 1. Sorry, let me rephrase that. 8 game wins, 1 game loss, 4 matches won. And then I get Duncan, my playing partner. And Duncan is having a bad day. Okay. His deck's okay. A few tweaks, it could be quite decent. However, it's a bit slow and it's C3. I force him to block with 1s, which singles, which means the C3 has no effect. And if he doesn't, he takes a lot of damage. And he can't pull that enough to hurt me. Or at least trade properly, and literally I just beat him down with more mechs. And then when he rolls a 1 on a temporary ceasefire, he gives up with about 20 cards left and nothing on the table, and I've got 6 mechs, and the same it goes in the next game. And that was it. 10-0-1. 10 game wins, no draws, 1 loss all day. Very first match, and 5 matches won. 10 points in the bag. And the shock of the tournament was I didn't get to play Neil. Neil, the guy, and it was the same in the previous tournament. I sat and did the maths and worked out that it was like 1 in 3.5 million chance that I didn't get to pay Neil on that. Maybe next time, hey Neil. So there we go. What have I got left? I've done the decks. I have the standings. I came first with Lau, 10 wins, no draws, 1 loss. Matt Gree had won 6, lost 4. And the other thing to note here is the numbers look wrong because there are 7 players and it's 5 rounds of Swiss. So there's 1 more round that I didn't play in because that was my round. That's the privilege of kind of leading the tournament. So we'll look at what happened in the last one. I'm not even sure that that's in there, or whether we played that or not. Doesn't look like we played that final round. So I was clear winner. Matt Greet, 6-4-0. Glenn 6-4-2. Doesn't quite seem right because he only lost 2, but it could be that Matt beat him in the head-to-head, which might be the decider. We can check the results in a minute. Mike Gwillam 4-5. Dan 3-6. Neil 3-7. Duncan 1-7. So we're just looking at where are we? Glenn versus Matt. So we really want to see Matt won 2-1 against Dan, and I drew Dan next round, and then Matt beat Mike 2-1. So he's 4-1, and I'm 4-1 at the start. Where did Glenn beat Neil 2-0, and then he beat Mike 2-0, surprisingly, and then Duncan 2-0. So where's Glenn? He got by 2-0 there, 2-0 there, 2-0 there, and he lost 1 there. So that actually should be wrong. 6-0-1, I think it should be. And then Matt Greet 6-0-4. Matt 2-1. Matt 2-0. 0-2. You got a bye there, and 2-0. 2-1 at the end. So maybe the numbers aren't quite right, but hey ho. So there you go. That's a tournament report. Not a short stream for me. I mean, normally I do about half an hour, 45 minutes, and we're double that. So hey ho. If you liked it, if you think it was interesting, if you thought it was good fun, then please let me know. I've got a couple of others kicking around that I can do. I think I can easily do the follow-up tournament to this, which was Colours down in Reading. I've got a similar kind of set of records and notes, so that would work reasonably well. And if you're interested, then drop me a line, let me know. As ever, you can always subscribe and tag it and thumbs up and do all the YouTube videos. I'm never overly excited about that. I'm not here for the subscribers and the list of people. I'm here more to record and store some of this for posterity and have a bit of fun doing so. So anyway, if you like it, let me know. I'll see if I can do some more. I'm continuing to try and do a stream per week. That's going to continue for at least another 3 or 4 weeks, and then I need to take a break for a couple of reasons. So I'll be away for a bit, but I'm going to plan and do some stuff around that as well. If there's anything you want me to do, then please say so. I am, as I said, your willing servant. You know, my one listener. I try my best to keep you happy. So if you want card reviews or deck reviews or anything else, just let me know. If you want to talk about specific cards and strategies and tactics and all those other things, fine. I note that there's 2 things I said I should probably go and do from this. Probably should go and do Rule of Sevens, probably should go and do sideboarding, probably should look at the box powers, look at the arena and what that was when it came out, etc., and how that played. I think we did a couple of tournaments in the arena. The arena was basically a clan season and an Inner Sphere season, and all the tournaments were Inner Sphere versus Inner Sphere or clan versus clan. I don't think I played in those, but I do have the decks and the results, and again, I'm happy to talk through some of those and whatever else. But if there's anything you want, just say, and we'll see if we can make that happy. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a very good day, or the rest of the day is very good, and all tomorrow and all weekend, because it's a Friday today. And if you're listening to this late, then just have a good time and look after yourself, because it's a big bad word on there. And I'll see you soon for another stream on probably, although it might be something different, another Battletech game or Battletech CCG, something or other at some point in the future. Take care. Look after yourselves.